Because of the things like the prostitute law reform, smacking kids, the tuck shops, all that sort of thing. And yet when we look at those, we also say, well, it seems that people are kind of getting used to it. Well, what are the PC things?
Well, you'd have to ask the people who are saying that, but
well,
I can tell you, I was out there.
It's not being allowed to raise
children. You know, you have to ask them that, not me. I'm just telling you. You asked me originally why people are fed up with this government. I'm telling you, it's because there's a feeling overwhelmingly that it's got too PC. Now that's what people are telling me.
So
now you have to ask them why they think that. But I'm telling you, that's what they're saying.
What do you think people think of the PC elements?
I haven't necessarily said it's too PC myself. You know, you're putting words into my mouth there. I'm telling you what people are telling me. So we're talking about the political atmosphere out there, and that is the consistent message. People are sick of this interference. And I can tell you what's too PC is telling people what sort of light bulb to use. That is way too PC.
Well, I mean, I guess they would argue that if we're trying to be serious.
No, you asked me what I think. Sure. That's what I think.
How's by the way, how's John Key's Food in Schools program going?
Well, when we get into government, I think we'll have a chance to actually do a lot more about that stuff.
Do you think that's one of the things that you'll do, is to try and help it that way by providing food for school kids?
Well, there's a range of things you can do in government. John spoke about that about 18 months ago. I haven't had an update on how that's going at the moment, but I can certainly find out for you.
Could you? I wouldn't mind knowing.
Okay.
What about McGlennon Close? Has he been back there?
Look, I can tell you, I don't know if John has been back there recently, but I can tell you that little girl that he took up to Waitangi, he has had ongoing contact with her, and certainly I know that Jackie Blue has had ongoing contact with that girl's mother. So, look, John's a genuine guy. He's not a guy that says stuff and then doesn't do it. He does follow up on stuff. Of course, he's an extremely busy guy. I don't know how he even has time to, have a private life. But, he's not a guy that says stuff and then doesn't do it. And I can tell you one thing, you won't find a more genuine person in politics than John Key. Labor will try and tell you all sorts of stuff about that guy, but he's straight up and down.
Let's go back to the broadcasting for a little bit, because we're coming towards
I almost forgot why we were here.
I know. Well, it's the first time we've had a national opinion since we've had John Key. We have to ask you a few questions. I'm sure we'll get more now. What do you think about TVNZ6 and TVNZ7?
Look, I've watched 7 quite a bit. I think they, I like some of the content that's on there, like Media 7. Backbenchers is pretty entertaining. It's quite good to be able to watch a continual loop of news with a New Zealand flavour. Yeah, I think they're doing a pretty good job. But I mean, they're part of the wider digital revolution, and it's going to be some time before we see how this all plays out. I mean, we've said we're going to keep that funding in place, but we want to make sure that 78 million over 6 years doesn't get used to cross-subsidise other projects. So
do you think
the jury's out? We'll see what happens.
Do you think those 2 channels should go into the Sky Network?
No, I don't actually, because I think you've got to be realistic that you've got 2 commercial blocks there, and they will reach an agreement which works well for them. I mean, there was pressure to get or to extend for government to intervene to make sure 1, 2 and 3 stay on Sky, but I think these are 2 commercial organisations or 2 commercial blocks. They will work out what works well for them both, and I think you'll find TV1 and TV2 and TV3 do remain in Sky in the long term. I don't think 6 and 7 should definitely go onto Sky.
Where does National stand on the youth radio network? It was bandied about for a long time. Sure. We'd have a youth radio network, and then along came Kiwi FM and took the frequency. Kiwi FM's now down to 0.1% ratings.
Well, that comes up for review, that frequency, on the 31st of December, so I'm sure Cam West Radio Works will be coming to us to put a proposal, or coming to the government, sorry.
Well, quite potentially they will be coming to you. So where do you as...
In terms of a youth radio network, look, I think at the moment that sounds like a solution looking for a problem. We don't get any correspondence. The whole time I've been the spokesperson, no one has written to me saying we need a youth radio network.
Possibly because it's been shut down.
No,
I mean, no one's
written to me saying we do need one. I mean, look, we've got the most diverse radio industry in the world. There's a lot of stuff out there per head of population. We've got more stations than anywhere else in the world. There's plenty of New Zealand content. There's the B network. There's a lot of radio out there for youth. No one's making the case to us for a youth radio network. It seems to be a debate that was held several years ago and people have moved on. That's my assessment of it at the moment. But
my
look,
assessment of it would be that there was a whole bunch of people very keen to have a youth radio network, a national radio for young people that is free of advertising, that does allow kids to have their own voice on the radio, and that it was being pursued quite strongly by people like the Finns and stuff like that to try and get it up.
But what about hearing from the kids themselves rather than people who are older people?
Well, let's do you think that if I did a survey of school kids and said, would you rather listen to Kiwi FM or would you rather listen to your own radio youth network, which would you prefer?
Well, I guess it depends how the question is phrased. I think it's going to be like, it'll be a question like, it's a bit like saying, oh, do you approve of clean air? And people go, oh yeah, of course I'm going to vote for that. So yeah, they probably are going to vote for a youth network. But I mean,
let me put it another way. Do you think that Kiwi FM is a good use of that frequency, as it's reaching 0.1% of the potential audience?
You would have to compare it with what the alternative would be, and we've got a lot of publicly funded stations in New Zealand that don't rate particularly well. I think there should be transparency around the ratings, but it is a forum for New Zealand music, New Zealand content. You can't say that that is not on the air. So is there an alternative use? Well, I mean, that expires on 31st of December, and as I say, I'm sure Radio Works will be coming and making the case for continuation of the frequency.
Will New Zealand On Air be opened up for independent broadcasters to compete for broadcasting dollars? Currently, you can only apply for New Zealand On Air funding if your frequency or if your station can reach 95% of the potential audience.
So will it be,
for stations such as ourselves or for other regional channels that can reach a potential audience, who can reach an audience, but don't have the ability to reach a potential audience that aren't going to watch anyway?
Well, New Zealand On Air spends $70 million on TV a year, and I mean, that sounds a lot, but it doesn't go very far at the end of the day, and you've got to make sure that you get the best public return on that. So we have to look at what's in the public interest. We're moving into a new age in terms, as we discussed at the start, with broadcasting fragmenting all over the place. We have to make sure that what gets funded is actually in the public interest. So who can tell how the future will play out, but I think the New Zealand On Air model is excellent. It works very well, and that's why we've decided to push this $15 million over to them.
Internet speeds.
Yep.
What are you guys doing to speed them up?
Well, you've heard about our broadband policy, so I mean, that's going to focus on getting fibre to the home. We think that's going to have a huge impact. We want to see that rolled out. We think that's going to be very attractive in terms of increasing the economic productivity of the country. There'll obviously be a whole lot of side benefits like increased use for entertainment purposes, but we think that's a winning policy and we think it'll go well.
For the last time, there's absolutely 100% no way that you're going to privatise TVNZ in the first term.
That's what I've said. Yep, absolutely.
What about the second term?
We've written policy for the 2008 election. If there's any change in policy beyond that, we would always signal that. But I can tell you now, it's not even in our plans to sell TVNZ. It really isn't. And I can tell you, no one would want to buy it anyway. I mean, in terms of
if you were able to do
it's basically been halved. We have no plans. We have not had a discussion about selling TVNZ.
Let's imagine that you managed to turn it around and suddenly it's a hugely successful and we're back to 1999 days. Would there then be a policy to sell it? I mean, is it in the National Party's ideas to...
No, we've been quite upfront. We're not selling TVNZ.
Why does John Key say there is no plans to privatise in the first term rather than there is no plans to privatise full stop?
Oh, you'd have to ask John about that, but let's face it, we've got to take one step at a time. I mean, whoever wins this election is the government for 3 years. We're writing binding policy for the first 3 years, and we have no plans to sell any state assets.
But there used to be in the National Party a desire, or at least a feeling that the sale of state assets was a way to work, let the free market sort it out.
Who was that?
Do you think that is still in any way in the National Party?
Who had that feeling?
Well, they sold some, didn't they?
Well, look, no, we're not focusing on selling state assets at all. We're actually...
I'm just wondering whether that's a complete shift of focus of the National Party, or whether it's just we're not doing it for the first term. Do you think that there's still what's the philosophy?
Look, I think the philosophy is that we want to make sure that the state assets we have produce a great return for the New Zealand public. Now, an asset like TVNZ should be returning far more of a dividend to the public. The overall philosophy is, hey, I think we could get these state assets performing to a higher level. Let's focus on that.
Excellent. Dr. Jonathan Coleman, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Oliver.
Cheers. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck with the election.
Thank you very much.